I'm Sarah from Mr. and Mrs. DIY, and today I'm going to make homemade hamburger and hot dog buns. Now, if you're like me, you're not really going anywhere right now. And when I was shopping in preparation for staying home for a while, I didn't want to stock up on bread. Yeah, you can put it in your freezer, but I have limited freezer space and I didn't want to fill it with bread. So instead I figured I would buy yeast and flour and other baking ingredients, and I'll just make my own whenever we need it. Tonight I'm making hot dogs for my family. I'm actually gonna make a double recipe of this dough mixture. I'm going to make a batch of hot dog buns for tonight, and then tomorrow night I'm planning on serving sloppy joes for dinner, so I'll need hamburger buns for that. So the first thing we're gonna do is put yeast in a bowl. Now, if you have a KitchenAid mixer, they're really helpful, but you can definitely do this without a KitchenAid. You don't have to have one. For one recipe, you're going to use 1 package of yeast, which is equal to 2 1/4 teaspoons of yeast. Now I'm doubling this recipe, so I will need a total of 4 1/2 teaspoons of yeast. There, that should be good. I'd rather have a little too much yeast than not enough. To that, we're going to need some warm water. And when you're adding your warm water to your yeast, you do want to be careful that it's truly warm. If it's too hot, you'll kill the yeast and that will prevent your bread dough from rising properly. If your water's too cold, you won't activate the yeast and then it won't rise properly. So just take time with it, like you're making a bath for a baby. How warm would you want it to be? So typically, I take my time with this. I'll stand at the sink and kind of like I do if I'm making a baby's bath, test it on my wrist to make sure it truly feels warm. Again, because I'm making a double recipe, I'm going to use 2 cups of warm water, but if you're making a single recipe, you only need 1. There's our first cup, and there's our second. Now at this point, we want to let this mixture of yeast and warm water sit for a little while. This is going to allow the yeast to proof, which is where that yeast really wakes up and starts doing its job. You can see the yeast is already looking a little bit puffy in spots, and that's what you want. Some recipes will say you want your yeast to bloom. So you're going to give it about 10 or 15 minutes to start to activate and to get this kind of puffy look to the yeast mixture. And you want to make sure that it's not in a cold area. If you have a warm area of your kitchen, maybe near an oven, that would be ideal. But so long as it's not like near a cold open window, you should be fine. Okay, so it's been about 15 minutes and our yeast is ready to go. You can see it started to bloom. It's getting kind of like a soft puffy look. You can no longer see the little individual granules of the yeast. So that's how we know it is time to start adding the rest of our ingredients. So the next thing I'm going to add is sugar. This recipe calls for 3 tablespoons of sugar, but because I'm making a double recipe, I have 6 tablespoons of sugar. I'm also going to add salt. You will need 1 1/4 teaspoons of salt for one recipe, and I have double that amount. I think at this point I'm going to stir it around a little bit because I want all of the sugar and salt granules to mix in. So you can see I haven't added the attachment on my mixer yet because I feel like it's easier when the mixture is liquidy like this to just reach in and use a whisk, and I'll add my dough hook attachment when I'm ready with the flour. Next I have some melted butter. You're going to need 4 tablespoons of melted butter for one recipe, and I have twice that amount, so 8 tablespoons of melted butter. I'm just going to add that to the mixture. This makes it smell so good when you're baking. This is how this recipe really differs a lot from my regular bread recipe. It does not call for butter, but butter in the mixture, it just totally takes it to the next level. So now I'm going to add the egg. You'll need 1 egg for one recipe, and I have 2 eggs for my double batch. And I will have the recipe written out in the description box below, so you know exactly what amounts you need for one batch of dough. So at this point, I'm going to whisk all of these ingredients together, making sure to get those egg yolks broken up. Oh wait, I almost forgot the oil. I'm gonna add just a little bit of oil. For this double batch, I need 2 teaspoons of oil, but of course, if you're just making one recipe, you only need 1 teaspoon. Now I'm ready to mix all of this together, get those egg yolks broken up. I'm going to add a little bit of flour when I'm still using the whisk, because I just like to get that first bit of flour really well incorporated into the dough. Once I've done this, then I'm going to get out that dough hook attachment for my mixer, and do that. Now, if you don't have a mixer, a stand mixer like this, go ahead and use the whisk as I'm doing for this part, but when I switch to the dough hook, get a rubber spatula and just stir by hand with that rubber spatula. Let's add this dough hook attachment. This thing is so handy if you have one. Saves a lot of muscle. All right, we're just gonna add a little bit at a time. There we go. Okay, we're gonna slowly start mixing this. I'm going to use the slowest speed to get started until I see that some of that flour has begun to mix in. Because if I hit it too fast, the flour is just going to go flying out of the bowl, which I've done many times. I think I am going to come in here with a rubber spatula and just kind of scrape some of that flour that's accumulating around the edges. And also, I will add some more flour. I have skipped scraping the sides before, and this dough hook always does an excellent job of eventually getting it all. So you could leave it alone and it should be fine. Did I tell you how much flour I'm using? You're gonna need about 3 cups of flour if you're just making one batch. I've got 6 cups for my double recipe. When you're making any kind of bread dough, sometimes you have to vary the amount of flour you're putting in. So it's important to just kind of keep an eye on how sticky your dough is, because depending on the humidity and the weather and just, I don't know, sometimes it just needs a different amount. I don't know why, I just do what it wants. So be prepared to add another half a cup of flour if you need to. But you might not. Now it's a little different over there. Looking pretty good. I'm going to add a little bit more here. But I might not end up adding all of this. I did use this large mixing bowl too so that I could just do it all at once. But sometimes I wonder if those are as accurate. The thing I like most about using my KitchenAid with the dough hook, whoop, there we go, I got 2. I'm going to turn this down. Yeah, that's what happens when you turn it up too fast. I was talking and not paying attention. So one of the things I really like about using the dough hook is that I can set it and then walk away for a couple of minutes. And when I come back, this dough is ready to go. It looks awesome. And I know if I were mixing it by hand, I just wouldn't be that patient. I would probably give up before it reached that point. But you know it's ready when the dough has begun to really leave the sides of the bowl and all clump around that dough hook. Now if you're doing this without a stand mixer and you're doing it with a rubber spatula, it may get to the point where you need to put some flour on your hand and mix it by hand at this point. You might be able to use your spatula, but if it's getting too difficult, just reach in there and use your hand. You're going to be using your hand later anyway, so. Okay, I think our dough is ready. Take off this dough hook. You can see it's still kind of sticky. It's sticking a little bit to the sides of the bowl. It is more or less, it's thick, it's stretchy, it's ready to go. All right, let's scrape off this hook. My hands are clean. So now I'm gonna take some flour, spread it out on my counter. Just a little bit. This is to keep it from sticking. Scrape this out of here. It's really sticky today. It doesn't want to come out. And that might just mean that I need to work a little bit more dough in here, but I feel like it's pretty good actually. Okay, now I'm going to rinse out my bowl and then I'm going to coat it lightly with vegetable oil. Now I'm going to put a little bit of oil in the bowl here. And we're going to turn it until the inside of the bowl is coated with oil. Drizzling all around there. And that's going to keep the dough from sticking to the bowl. So when it rises, it'll It'll come out really easily. We're all done. Now it is gonna get about twice the size it is now. So we wanna get that bowl covered pretty far up the sides. Just gonna turn it around and around. There, that looks good to me. Okay, now going to just kind of work a little bit of flour into this dough. Just want it to be smooth. It's harder when you've got like these little loose bits here. It gets harder to get a smooth. Forget that, cut that out. Just gonna work a little bit of flour in here, make a nice smooth-ish ball of dough. All turned like this. All right, that looks pretty good. Now we're gonna plop it into this bowl that's coated in oil and tea towel, but you could use foil or saran wrap as well to cover it. And we're gonna set it somewhere warm to let it rise. It should take about 2 hours. You wanna let it rise until it's about twice the size it is now. It's been about an hour and a half. It didn't quite take 2 hours for my dough to rise today. And looks like it's doubled. You can see some of the oil there, so maybe I used a little too much, but it'll still be okay. So now what we're gonna do is dump it out on a floured surface, and we're going to knead the dough. So I have this handy tool called a bread scraper, and it is really useful. You can just run it along the edge of your dough, and that will help you. Ooh, look how nice and fluffy that is. That is kind of fun to play with. And see how easily it dumped out because we oiled the bowl. Just slid right out of there. So now I'm going to knead the dough. Look, you can see these air pockets in here, okay? That's what we want to squish down and get that air out of there. So when you're kneading dough, you're taking it, you're folding it over on itself and then pushing it down. You might sometimes feel some little air bubbles pop, almost like you're popping bubble wrap. Now remember, I have a double recipe here, so I'm going to be dividing this in half. I'll turn half of it into hot dog rolls and I'll turn half of it into hamburger rolls. Because it's got that oil on it, I'm not even really having to worry about flour on my hands. That oil is keeping it from sticking. If it didn't have the oil, it would be a lot stickier to work with. Yes, nice one. So now I'm going to use this tool to help me divide my dough into pieces. So because I have a double recipe and I'm making 2 different types of rolls, I'm going to first cut it in half. And I know from the last time I made this that I can get about 10 rolls out of 1 recipe of dough. So I will start, because I need the hot dog buns for supper tonight, I'm going to start with making my hot dog buns. I'm going to knead that down just a little bit more since I have a smaller amount to work with. Make sure I've got all the air bubbles out of it. All right, now I'm going to pat it flat. And I need to get 10 pieces that are as close to the same size as possible. So cut it in half. I should be able to get 5 hot dog buns out of each of these. I lied. I feel like this is not going to make 10. I feel like this is going to make 8. Let's try that. I'd rather have them be too big than too little. Right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. There we go. All right, now I have some baking pans here. You can just spray them with cooking spray, but I use parchment paper. I like using parchment paper when I can. And here's my trick to getting parchment paper to lay flat. You know how when it comes out of the roll, it's all curled up on itself? If you crumble it first, it will lay so much flatter than if you just pull it right out of the roll and expect it to lay flat. So, all right, now I'm going to form my rolls. Oh, I found a little air bubble hiding there. Press that out. So roll it like this. And it's nice to get the top smooth if possible, but you know what? The taste matters a lot more than the appearance, so we're not going to be too fussy. And they need about a 1/2 inch between each one. You know what, let's go this way. I'll do like 2 rows of them. I think that would look better. Last time I made this recipe, I turned it into hamburger buns. So the hot dog roll shape is kind of something I'm gonna figure out as I go. So I found if you push into the middle and kind of pull back the top and the sides, it helps to get a smoother texture on the top. Just be careful you're not creating any air pockets that way. Okay, so then you're gonna set it down on your parchment paper and squish it kind of flat. Like you want it, it's gonna, sorry, my pan keeps thumping there. It's going to kind of like bounce back a little bit, so don't worry too much, but it is going to rise, so you will still have a nice puffy roll after it has its second rise and we bake it. Even if they're a little wonky looking, your family can't complain about that. Okay, so I've made most of these hamburger rolls here. I don't think I divided my dough very evenly. I definitely have more hamburger buns than I have hot dog rolls. I'm getting, what, like 12 hamburger buns here. I've got 1 more to do. So you can probably get about 10 of each. Or if you're just making one recipe, just get 10 hamburger rolls or 10 hot dog rolls. Or if you like sliders, you can make little tiny ones. My kids actually prefer the sliders because they're easier to hold. And there we go. That's about how you want your hamburger buns to look. And then we're gonna set them in a warm place with a towel over them, and they're gonna rise a second time. Okay, sorry, I've got my phone, which has kind of a crummy camera on it. But these rolls, I think they're ready to go. Let's check them out and see. All right, they're the hamburger rolls. They're the hot dog rolls. There are my kids arguing in the background. But look at those. I think those are a good size. Here, it's in my hand, kind of for reference. They look pretty good to me. And they probably will puff up a little bit more still in the oven. So I'm gonna go ahead and pop them in and see what happens. Okay, so here are our finished rolls, or at least a sample of them. This is actually the day after they were baked. Yesterday I baked hot dog buns and hamburger buns. Our day kind of fell apart quickly. We had some sick kids, we had some hungry kids, we had some crying kids, and you know how that goes. When that happens, you don't stop to film your dinner, you just feed people and try and deal with the situation. So we have 2 hot dog buns left, and they were awesome. I really will say, they were so good. They took the hot dogs that I make purely because it's something my children will eat without complaining and fighting, and they made them feel more grown up. They were actually something my husband and I enjoyed eating as well. So I think next time I make them, I'll try and make it skinnier because they were a little chubbier than necessary, but the length on these was perfect. Like the hot dog went from one end to the next. It was awesome. And then all you have to do is just take a bread knife. This is my favorite bread knife. It's from Pampered Chef. And cut it open, and you've got an amazing, amazing hot dog bun. Now tonight we're having Sloppy Joe's, or some of you may call it beef barbecue. And we've got our hamburger rolls for that. And again, all I have to do, slice this open. And you can add hamburgers, you can add barbecue, make a sandwich with maybe some deli meat. I think I'm gonna go ahead and make that Sloppy Joe sandwich. Let's see how this goes. Micah, would you like to be a taste tester for me?
Oh yeah.
So this is just ground beef, tomato sauce, Worcestershire sauce, a little bit of brown sugar, and some apple cider vinegar. And I made up a bunch of this a couple weeks ago when I cooked a lot of ground beef up. So I went ahead and mixed the sauce into a bunch of it and put it in bags in the freezer. So that is making for a really fast and easy dinner tonight.
I'm looking forward to this. This looks really good.
Ladies, get yourself a husband who really likes food, because it makes cooking so worthwhile. When the kids are going, how many bites do I have to take? There's at least one person who's really happy and grateful that you cooked.
Very good.
Yeah?
Excellent. Yeah.
Let's see what that looks like there.
Perfect. Super hot right now though.
Yeah,
so.
super hot. It just came out of the crock pot. It was bubbling. Yum. All right, so that will be dinner tonight with some tater tots and veggies, and Hopefully something the kids will eat without complaining.
Oh yeah.
All right, so that is all for our homemade hamburger and hot dog bun tutorial. We'll have the recipe in the description below, as well as any other links that I can think of that might be relevant. So I hope you enjoy it. Hope you decide to try some new things as you are quarantined like us at home, cooking and not running to the store for bread. So good luck to you. Let us know if you make it. Tell us how it goes. Tell us if you've made anything new that you wouldn't have normally made during this time of self-isolation at home that we're all experiencing. We'd love to hear about it and chat with you in the comments. Thanks so much. Bye.
See ya.